Sup shooters, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to the SP Patrons video today that I'm making for Dinner Hey as part of their custom monthly music review. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves a track on the screen. This is from Lorde off of their album titled Melodrama. With the art up on the screen, we have Superb Cut. On Spotify, we're going to listen through it from start till finish and we're going to hear what we think. Let's do it, let's go. Get those lyrics up.
I play a supercut of us, all the magic we gave off, all the love we had and lost. And in my head,
okay,
the visions never stop. These ribbons wrap me up, but when I reach for you, there's just a supercut. In your car, the radio up. In your car, the radio up. We keep trying to talk about us. I'm someone, you may be my love. I'll be your quiet afternoon crush, be your violent overnight rush, make you crazy over my touch. But it's just a supercut of us. Supercut of us.
Alternate percussive textures.
Oh, it's just a supercut of us. Supercut of us. So I fall into continents and cars, all the stages and the stars. I turn all of it to just a supercut.
Breathy follow there.
In my head I do everything right. When you call, I forgive and I fight. Because of the moments I play in the dark. We were wild and fluorescent. Come home to my heart. In your car, the radio up. In your car, the radio up. We keep trying to talk about us. Slow motion, I'm watching our love. I'll be your quiet afternoon crush, be your violent overnight rush, make you crazy over my touch. But it's just a supercut of us. Supercut of us.
Great use of hit chest, hit voice, should I say.
Supercut of us. Supercut of us. But it's just a supercut of us. Supercut of us. Oh, it's just a supercut of us. Supercut of us. 'Cause in my head, I do everything right. When you call,
Great dynamic
I
range.
forgive and not fight. All the moments I play in the dark, I'm fluorescent. Come home to my heart. 'Cause in my head, I do everything right. When you call, I forgive and not fight. Because of the moments I play in the dark, we were wild and fluorescent. Come home to my heart. 'Cause in my head, I do everything right. When you call, I forgive and not fight. Because of the moments I play in the dark, we were wild and fluorescent. Come home to my heart.
How we're gonna spend the rest of the 1.5 minutes though? That is interesting. I don't know whether you're supposed to be buying into the lower volume parts or just appreciating the serenity of the theme around it.
Thank you.
I'm kind of impressed by that. I wasn't thinking that we were going to have a track where we just had so kind of little, you know, after that 3-minute mark. I figured there'd be more exposition or there'd be a repetition of choruses or we'd simply stop it. But having that track have just the vocals underneath those synth pads was just an interesting creative decision that we'll be talking about more in the conclusion. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an actor named Lorde titled Supercut for this Patreon review from Dinahay. In this section, I'm going to be providing an overall, not an overall score, an overall song analysis from vocals and lyrics all the way through to production, as well as any applicable constructive critique, and then finally my general thoughts from a listener's perspective. But first of all, what do we think this track is about? I think this track is about someone going through the memories that they had with someone else in their head, struggling with the situation they're in with their relationship, wishing things were different, wishing they could talk about it, being the person they think the other person needs but not really getting their needs met, and it just ends up they falling asleep to that. In their head, they think that this person is perfect for them and they're trying to ideate an alternate reality where their needs are being met, but in reality, it's just not. So that's what Lorde is discussing here. I think that Lorde sounds great. Great vocal technique, very comfortable in her head and chest voice, very easy to listen to, nice sort of palatable vocal texture and timbre, very distinct. You know, as a fellow Kiwi, you can hear the accent in there a little bit. It's kind of nice to have that sort of like uniqueness about that. We whisper, some parts are an upper register there, we go up the ridge, we growl sometimes, other points we're just sort of doing a clean sung vocals, we harmonize. There's a lot of different ways that we express ourselves. And I did actually enjoy this one quite a bit. I liked the variety of different ways that we vocalized, the varying sort of rhythms and cadences we had with certain bits there, how they were distinct because of the different approaches. And ultimately, I think again, it was just a really brave move to have our vocals nice and quiet for that last third of the track there, just because you're kind of searching for it. You recognize the rhythm or the pattern of words we might be saying. It's just a sort of an undercurrent there being swept away as we go into the nothingness of the ether. Ultimately, yeah, great vocal performance. And we did kind of, at some points, especially when it got very quiet, you know, that really sort of like, that part where it didn't have any of the compression limiting, it was just very kind of like low key. To have that kind of growl there as well, and other parts there, just that raw kind of expression, the frustration with that situation is really neat. I like that. That's not an angle I've really seen of Lorde. I like when things are a bit more intense. I think that's really cool. In addition to that, what else do we want to say about this? I think that the track structure of the track at 4 minutes 37, while it's outside of the 2 to 4 minute sweet spot, I don't necessarily mind that. I think that if a track is longer and you have that 1.5 minutes of mystique at the end there where we're simply enjoying being mesmerized by all the different harmonies and pad elements there, it's totally fine, and it wasn't the same the entire time through that. We had a variety of different synth bass and drum patterns as well as different vocal approaches, and ultimately it was well fleshed out with the varying verses and choruses and all that. And we didn't overstay our welcome with anything. There was no filler. I think if they tried to do more vocally than what they had to with the outro, might have been a little bit too kind of like picky, but no, we really committed to the bit. It was a longer track from Lorde, but I think nonetheless effective. There's predominantly this chord no groove on the drums, and I think it sounds fantastic. It's got a nice kind of push to it. It makes you want to get up and dance, and in a way where like it's not super upbeat or exhilarating. It's almost kind of melancholic or kind of doing this, not wanting to commit to being too happy about it, almost as if getting too happy about it would be kind of like lame or cheesy. But like you can appreciate the pulse and how vibrant it is in parts, especially with those upper register vocals and some of the flourishes with the synths. I think when you do have the sequencer, like 1 EN to 2 EN to 3 EN to low end there, resonating with those root notes, it's effective. It's just it sounds nice, and it's more busy sounding when you have the variations between the kicks and the bass while still having them back each other up. I think the keys being relatively low key, especially in comparison to those synth sequences, were a nice touch there. I mean, the piano is a staple of Lorde's work there, and it's a very sort of like functional instrument, especially again from an accompaniment perspective, especially with the 8 octaves. We played some triads that clearly sort of set out expectations in terms of what the harmonies and progressions would be like. We didn't rely on the same idea too much. We had switches and variations of those as well, and they were nice and sort of friendly and chill sounding as well, which I think didn't sort of oversteer the ship too much. The synth pads and strings that we had there had a wonderful shimmer and sheen which filled up the upper layers and made it sound kind of magical, like the thoughts in our head were like that. out. And we got to the end of the track there, we had those those interesting sort of pads looping and oscillating and kind of fermenting over there. I feel that was just really neat from an atmospheric ambience perspective. The vibe was appropriate there. It kind of did seem like we were going to sleep, again as per the album art along those lines. And we had a great sort of control over post-production, which again at Lord's level you would expect, but it's still nice to have different deliberate resonances in the frequency spectrum to change things up and make it a bit more exciting, even in parts where we didn't necessarily want to have it to be too exhilarating. I thought that the use of those really kind of clashy, slammy snares was a fun percussive texture as well there. It had a kind of a harshness there that kind of slapped you in the face and woke you up. There was one part in the second verse, and everything paused, and it was just a great rhythm unison and sort of awareness and chemistry of things there. The performance overall was tight. I like the implementation of the different instruments, how they were featured with each other, how they coalesce with each other in terms of the rhythms they were presented, quarters, eighths and sixteenths, offbeats and onbeats and syncopateds included. And I think that the major key leaning was fine. It was okay. I'm not always a massive fan of when we're kind of a little bit kind of coy about the mood that the progression needs to put forward, but I think it's a song where if you weren't really listening to the vocals, you could just appreciate how pleasant and gentle the song sounded. Whereas if you're actually listening to the lyrics themselves, it almost seems like Lorde is trying to soothe themselves with the music when they're going through all these trials and tribulations. So yeah, ultimately I feel like it's well fleshed out. It builds slowly. It comes up to a point which is completely sort of like justifiable in terms of its perceived intensity. There's no note out of place. Theme kind of makes sense for the subject matter and the lyrics. Studio recording, mixing and mastering, that was tight. Again, I liked how polished the kicks, for example, were sidechained neatly with the bass and other elements there. The vocals had a great presence in the mix and weren't overproduced. I liked the layering and presentation of things within the stereo field with the panning and stuff. I liked when it was underproduced as well. Like for example, in that quieter bit there where it's just the vocals and the raw sort of piano takes there, and that dynamic range was really important. It was just a nice palette cleanse before we went into our last part and then had that extended outro section. I like that we deliberately put those vocals as a sub-layer to make us search them in that last part whilst everything washed over us. Everything felt really well thought out, and this is probably one of my, I do like this track. I'm not a massive fan of Lorde's music, but I do like this one. I think this was well handled. And I think after listening to Homemade Dynamite again today from Dinner Hagen, thank you for that. I genuinely appreciate it. I didn't really say this at the time, but I think sometimes you need to have one track in an album and then you need to have a second to kind of sort of foment and to kind of figure out how they apply to each other. And I think here I understand more of what Homemade Dynamite was doing here. That kind of concoction that Lorde is putting forward here, I think puts Homemade Dynamite in more context. I think I appreciate both, although I still prefer Supercut. Even if the imagery was very vivid, like the splattering on like the cars and like the explosions and stuff like that in Homemade Dynamite. I think both are good. I appreciate why people enjoy this music, and there's no applicable constructive critique. Nice and loud without pumping bus compression. Limiting is handled. Great use of filtering on vocals to change the representation within the mix as well, how they're affected and how they heard. From a general listener's perspective, I feel like, again, as I mentioned, Lorde isn't a musician I've heard a lot of. I heard Royals and heard it so much that I didn't want to listen to any more of Lorde's music. It was overplayed on radio stations and I hated it. I do have to appreciate and show respect for the fact that Lorde has continued to carve out a career for themselves as they go through life, and I love that for them. I think they deserve their success as well as everyone else that was involved in the production and protraction of these tunes. I mean, 26 million listeners a month is phenomenal, genuinely. I wish him all the best of luck in future. Thank you for watching my review of this track from an actor named Lorde titled Supercut off of the Melodrama album. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show them some love via the various social medias and their Spotify page, and stay cool and stay safe. Please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as I need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world, and I will catch you in the next SB Patrons video. Spider Hands out.